Welcome to working with the control panel. And the control panel is a place where we can go set different settings on the computer that will allow our computing experience to be our own. It will allow us to personalize a lot of different things. So the things that we'll be working on basically will be like the mouse options. We're going to look at the Action Center. We can change power options. We can uninstall a program. We can personalize our screen. See this big Seahawks logo here? Go Hawks! I was able to set that using my control panel personalization settings. So we can make the computer our own. We can talk about Windows updates. There are a lot of different things within the control panel that's going to allow us to change the way we interact with our computer. Okay? So, and it all depends on what operating system you're running as to how you're actually going to get into the control panel. So at the college, we're still running Windows 7, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but Windows 7, we're going to have a circle down here in the lower left-hand corner. And if we press that circle, it's going to give us our start menu. On the right-hand side of that start menu, there's a list of options, and one of those options is the control panel. And you're going to go ahead and click that. Now, if you're running Windows 8.1 or Windows 10, this is a shortcut on how to get into the control panel. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. There's always multiple ways to do things within a computer. They're making it very user-friendly for us. But this is a little bit of a shortcut. So I'm going to come down here to this little start button, and I'm going to right-click, and then from that menu, remember what happens when we right-click, we get a contextual menu, and from that menu that appears, I'm going to click on the control panel, okay? So I've clicked on the control panel. Now you may see something that looks like this. This is showing us what's inside of our control panel in category view. So I like to see everything. So I'm actually going to come up here to the view by, and I'm going to click on category, and I'm going to change it to large icons, okay? So that shows me everything that I have access to within my control panel. And if we look up here, we have what are called breadcrumbs. So basically this is a path. This says, okay, you're in your control panel, you're viewing all of the control panel items. Okay, once we click on something, then there'll be something else up there. And again, those are called breadcrumbs. It's basically a path of telling us how we got to where we are. So if we take a look at this, we have multiple items, and it's alphabetical. So I have Action Center, we have the add features to Windows 8.1, administrative options, BitLocker, credential manager, device manager. Now, a lot of these things you're never going to touch, and it's probably a good idea that you don't, because if you go in there and start making changes, you could really mess some things up. But there are a few things that you need to know how to manage, okay? One of them being the mouse. That's probably the top one. So, and as I'm moving my cursor around, you can see that it goes from this arrow, and it moves into a hand, okay? So this is telling me I have a clickable link. So if I come over here to mouse and I click one time, it's going to launch my mouse options or mouse properties dialog box. Okay, I can move that around. I want it to be right here in the middle of the screen because I'm going to show you something here pretty soon that's kind of cool. So here I have my mouse properties, and I have multiple tabs. Now this tells me that I have multiple options that I can set. The first tab being buttons. So if we think about that, we have a left click and a right click. So we have a left button and a right button, and it's asking us what we want to do with the button configuration. Now by default, now we talked a little bit about default settings, it's just preset. These are preset configurations. There has to be a setting, so they just decide to make this the default, okay? So most people, the majority of people, are right-handed. There are some lefties out there. So if we have a left button and a right button, so if we're right-handed and we're holding our mouse properly, typically we're going to see that our left index finger, our right index finger is going to be over that left button, and our right and middle finger is going to be over the right button. okay? So the left is considered our primary, and the right is considered our secondary. And basically, 95% of our clicks are going to be left, and the other 5% are going to be right, okay? So that's the default setting. So this is saying that we can switch the primary and the secondary buttons. So what that means is that those left-handed people there can switch that so that your primary click now becomes the right button, which if we're holding that mouse in our left hand, the left index finger is going to be resting over the right button, right? And then our middle finger on our left hand is going to be resting over the left button. So we have essentially changed or switched their functions, okay? So we can do that by clicking this button right here. I'm not going to do that because I'm actually right-handed, but that's how the left-handed people could actually change that, and it would make it a little bit easier for them to work their computers, right? Okay, so the next thing is our double click speed. So a lot of things on the computer require a double click or a click click. Okay, so we can increase or decrease the speed of how fast or how slow we double click. Now, I've been in the business for a really long time. I have a lot of older clients, and some of them don't click very quickly. So we might slow that down because, you know, if you click and click, it sees it as two single clicks. They're too far apart to be considered a double click. But if we slow it down, okay, if I slow it down and I say click and click, it actually counts it as a double click, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put this back to where it was. And then the next setting is a click lock. Now, I don't suggest using this. This enables you to highlight or drag without holding down the mouse button. You know, I've been a tech for years and years and years. I've been playing with a computer since, you know, long time ago. I'm not going to say when, long time ago, and I've gotten myself in trouble with this, so I just don't suggest using it. When we have multiple tabs up here and we've made changes, it's a good idea to get into the practice of applying changes every time you move to another tab. Now, I haven't applied any change, or I haven't made any real changes here, so I'm not going to apply this. The next tab I'm going to click on is pointers. So here we have a scheme, and if we take a look, we can click the drop down, and then we can see the different types of pre-configured schemes. And what a scheme is basically a set. Okay, so we have, I think we have it set to Windows Black Extra Large System Scheme. So that's telling me that this is going to be this really big black pointer. And as I scroll down, it shows me what all the pointers are going to look like. Okay, what they do. This is a busy one. Okay, so this is an hourglass. We have working in the background. Let's find another one. Let's do inverted. Let's do standard. Okay, so here's a standard one. So it's just showing us the different types of icons that we might see working in the background. So we have a pointer and an hourglass. We have an hourglass indicating that there's no pointer. We can't do anything. We have to wait for it to get caught up, okay? And then we could tell it that we want to enable the pointer shadow. We'd go ahead and apply because we changed it, okay, and you can see how my cursor changed. And then I'm going to come over here to the next one, to pointer options. Here we have our motion. So if I look at this, now we talked about in a previous video on how we correspond our movements with the mouse with how our cursor moves. So if we move our mouse up, it's going to move our mouse up on the screen. If I pull my mouse towards me, it's going to move my mouse down on the screen. And if I move it to the right, it's going to move it to the right. If I move it to the left, it's going to move to the left. I can move it diagonally, okay? So I can move it diagonally. So we have to kind of coordinate how the mouse moves. But if we pull this over here to the fast, it's going to zing around, okay? I'm barely moving my mouse on my desk, barely. If I pull it over here to the slow, now I really have to move it. I have to pick it up because I have to move it so far to get it to move at all. So I suggest you play around with that because you'll see how weird it feels. I'm going to go ahead and put this back where it belongs, where I can deal with it a little bit easier. So that's the pointer speed. So if you ever buy a new mouse and you install it and it's really zinging around, come in here and you can change the motion. A lot of mice have a really fast pointer speed that's a preset configuration. And so if you come in here and you change that, then it's not so fast. It's not so quick on movement. The next option is called Snap To. And what that is going to do, it says it moves the pointer to the default button in the dialog box. So if I take a look at this dialog box, I can tell what the default button is because it's outlined in a different color. So this is blue. Okay, so this is telling me that OK is the default button in this dialog box. It's also the active button. So if I click enter, it's going to say, okay, we want to close this dialog box. If I tab, remember we talked about tab in a previous, if I tab, then it tabs it over. See how it's moving? See, this is tab. Tab. See, now different things are being selected as I move tab. So here, this is selected. If I hit tab, now the cancel button is the default. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and move this back to OK. But if I tell it to snap to, okay, so now I'm going to tell it to snap to, I'm going to tell it to apply, and I'm going to close this. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on mouse. Now all I'm going to do is click on mouse and then I'm going to move my hand away from the mouse and you're going to see what happens. It's going to move my pointer over to the mouse options OK button. See what it did? See, it moved it down straight there. See where it was before? It's got the circle. That's where the mouse was before. It automatically moved it for me. This is my OK button. This is the default setting. Now, I don't like that. I'm going to actually take this off. Okay, and that's not set by default. That's actually something that you'd have to go in and set. Now, the next option is the visibility. And because of the program that I'm using right now, I'm not going to be able to show you what this looks like. But this pointer trail actually would show a trail of pointers behind the actual pointer to show you where it's at. I use this when I'm teaching classes so people can keep an eye on the pointer as I move it around the screen. I can't show that to you, but if you go into those properties and set that, you'll see what it looks like. So I would suggest doing that. This is a default setting. This is hide pointer while typing. So when you're typing in an email or you're typing in the Word program, as you're typing, the pointer is actually being hidden. You can take that off though if you don't want it to go away. The next option is show the location of the pointer when I press the control key. Have you ever lost your pointer on the screen? I've lost my cursor every now and again. So if I have this checked and I click apply, and then let's say I'm going to pull my cursor down here at the bottom. Now I can still see it because I know where it's at. But if I press the control button, see how it kind of beacons in on that? Can you see that? Okay, it's down here on the bottom, more towards the right, but not quite. It's kind of in the middle right. Okay, so you can see that telling me that this is where my pointer is at. Okay. So I'm hitting the control key on my keyboard, CTRL. I'm going to go ahead and take that off because I don't ever use it. But then I would apply because I made some changes, right? And then we have the wheel tab. So here's the wheel, and some mice have the wheel on them, some of them don't. Some of them will allow you to horizontal scroll, some will not. The wheel, if you move it, you can kind of feel it kind of catches, you know, as you move it, you'll feel it kind of catch. That's a roll. And it's saying roll the wheel 1 notch to scroll, and it will scroll 3 lines at a time. And that's the default setting. So if I come over here to my browser, I'm going to go ahead and move this over here. And let's just go to a site that has a lot of text. So we'll just go to msn.com. It's not my favorite site, but it has a lot of text on it. So I'm gonna roll my scroll wheel 1 time, and you can see that it just kind of moves it a couple of lines. Okay, it doesn't move it very much. So this is 3 lines at a time. So I'm just rolling it 1 at a time. There's 1, there's 1, there's 1. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and minimize this. Now I'm going to change this, and I'm going to say I want it to roll 15 lines at a time, and I'm going to click apply. So now I'm going to go back into Firefox. And now I'm going up, and you can see it's scrolling much faster than it was. Okay, see the difference here? It was only scrolling 3 lines at a time. Now it's 15, and I'm only doing it one at a time. So you can see the difference on how quickly you can go through a page by changing that setting, by changing this. Okay, I'm going to go back down to 3 because that's just the way I'm used to it, and I'm going to click apply. So now we have something called horizontal scrolling. Some wheels allow that, some do not. So the mouse that I actually have on this computer will not allow horizontal scrolling. It means that the wheel moves to the left and to the right and allows you to scroll from left to right. This one doesn't do that. Some of them do, some of them don't. And it's the same concept where it'll allow you to scroll three characters at a time, or 20 characters at a time, or however you set it. The next tab is hardware, and this is just telling you that this is the hardware that you have. So I happen to have a Logitech HID compliant cordless mouse. So HID simply stands for Human Interface Device. Okay, so it's a cordless mouse, it's wireless, it has battery, and it's basically on a USB input device. So I have a little USB dongle or transceiver that's plugged into the computer, and then it transmits to that and then back to the mouse and whatnot, and it allows my mouse to move, or my cursor to move on my screen. And then I have this set point settings, and this is a special software for this particular mouse. So I clicked that, and it actually brought up a different screen. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close that because I'm not going to use it. I'm going to come back over here and go back into mouse. So you might not have this set point settings tab. Okay, you might have something else. It could be a Microsoft tab if you have a Microsoft mouse or something along those lines. But once you're done with this, then we can go ahead and click OK, and we're good, right? So the next thing that you would probably use in your control panel would be the power options. Now, maybe not so much at the college, but for your own machines at home, you would probably want to use the control panel and go into your power options to change the way the machine goes to sleep. So every computer has power options set. It already has a default setting, which again, we talked about default, meaning that it's just the preset configuration for whatever settings are already there. So these can always be changed, remember. So if we go into power options, it's this battery guy with the plug. I'm going to click on power options once, and remember, a hand means that we have a clickable link. So we click on power options. It's going to bring us into our power options. Again, we have breadcrumbs up here, control panel, all control panel items, and power options. So this is a Lenovo machine, and so I have the ThinkCentre default settings. Now I didn't change anything as far as the default name, but I changed quite a few options here in the change plan settings, and this is where you would go. So you click on change plan settings, and I took and turned off the display at 25 minutes versus I think it's like 10 or 15 minutes. And so what that means is if you get up and walk away from your computer after 25 minutes, the screen is going to turn itself off, so that it's not consuming energy. It's not going to burn the backlight out. Most of us have the flat panel displays now, and so they have a backlight that lights up the screen, and the longer it's on, the less time you have on that backlight. So I turn mine off after 25 minutes just because I like to have the screensaver play for a little bit. And then the next option here is put the computer to sleep. Now mine says never. My computer is on 24/7. I never turn it off unless I'm doing an update and I have to restart. It's just the way I've always ran my machines. And just a quick tidbit of information, Google did a study a few years back, probably 10 years now, but they did a study on hard drives. And hard drives have moving parts. And so what they were trying to determine is, was it better for a hard drive to be in an off state and then be turned on, or was it better for them to go to sleep and then come back up, or was it better for them to be on all the time? And it turns out that hard drives are meant to be in perpetual motion, which means they need to be on all the time, and they will actually last longer. Even though they're always continuously moving, that hard drive is going to last longer than a hard drive that is turned off frequently. Now, if you're concerned about, energy consumption, things of that nature, newer machines, they are very energy efficient. Again, I've got 4 or 5 machines running in my house. I don't even know how many I have. I have 4 machines running in my house, and they're on all the time. I never turn them off, and it really doesn't add that much to the power bill, just if that's what you're wondering about. So I have mine set to never. If you click the drop down, you can tell it to put it to sleep after 10 minutes. I would never choose 1, 2, or 3. I mean, that's just not enough time. 20 minutes, 25, 30, 45. And what it means to go to sleep is it slows everything down. Everything that you were working on is still there, and then as soon as you move the mouse or you hit the enter key or the space key on your keyboard, the machine wakes back up and says, oh, well, you want to do something. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. So anyway, that's what putting it to sleep means. And so the next option that you might have is to change the advanced power options. And I would probably stay out of here unless you have a laptop. And if you have a laptop, you're actually going to have 2 of these columns. You're going to see turn off display on battery, and then you'll see another box over here that says turn off display plugged in. And so obviously when you have a laptop and you're running your computer, if you're using the battery, it's going to be sucked up pretty quick if you're on the internet, if your screen's always on, things of that nature. So the options will probably be a little different. So the next thing, like I said, would be change the advanced power settings. And so when I have a laptop, I always make sure that I tell it that I don't want it to go to sleep when I close the lid. So I would scroll down to the power buttons and lid, and then I would come over here and I would say, I would, if this was a laptop, I would have the lid action here. And so I'd click on lid action and I would say, do nothing. I don't want you to go to sleep if I close the lid. So that's how most laptops are set up. If you close that lid, it puts it into a sleep mode. And so when you open it back up, you have to wait. You have to wait for it to come back up. So this is where you would do that. And you'd click OK, and you'd tell it to save the changes. Now, I didn't make any changes. I'd tell it to save the changes, and then it would come back to this screen. Now, you could create your own power plan. Now, you don't have to do this. You could create your own power plan and then switch between the 2 or 3 or 4 or what have you. But that's just something for you to know is there, that you can change those options. So we're going to go back to all control panel items, and the next thing we're going to look at is our programs and features. And again, this is going to be alphabetical. So if we come down here, this is programs and features. If we click on this, it's going to show us all of the programs that are currently installed on the machine that you have. So here is where you're going to uninstall something. Say you're having a problem with a program and you just need to get it out of there because it's really messing things up. So this is where you'd come. You'd come to the programs, you'd go to programs and features, and you'd see all of those programs. So I installed a program called Classic Shell on the computer, and it's this little icon right here. It allows me to show you what the Windows 7 start menu is going to look like. So I'm actually going to uninstall that just to show you what that process is. So if we click on Classic Shell, you'll notice up here in this bar we have a couple of options. We have Organize and we have Uninstall. Now sometimes the options are a little bit different. If I come over here and click this Blackboard Collaborate, you have Uninstall and Repair. So you have a couple different options sometimes. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to Classic Shell, and I'm going to click Uninstall. And the first thing it does is it comes up and it says, wait a minute. Are you sure you want to uninstall this program? okay? Because, you know, once you do that, then if you want it back, you have to reinstall it. So it's just, it's confirming that. It's making sure that you absolutely want to get rid of it. Now, you could put a check mark here. It says, in the future, do not show me this dialog box. I'm going to warn you against that. I've been teching for a really long time. I've had computers forever, and I don't even turn it off, because every now and again, you could have an inadvertent click, okay, and not realize that that's what you just did. And so without this warning that pops up, it would just launch right into the uninstall process, and you might not be able to stop it in time. So I wouldn't put a check mark there. So I'm going to tell it yes, because I really do want to get rid of it. And it's going to come up and it's going to say we're going through the Windows installer. It's going to prepare to remove. And it could take a couple of seconds, like this is taking. And you'll see that mouse pointer. See the mouse pointer there? It's a hourglass. It's saying, I'm busy. I can't do anything with this window right now. Okay, so this is its own window. But if I were to come over here, I could do something over here. And then it comes up and says, please wait while Windows configures Classic Shell. And you'll notice there is a cancel button there. So if you inadvertently did it and you didn't know that you were doing it, you could click cancel. It might take a while for it to cancel out of it though. It has to get some information, and so what it's doing is it's taking and finding all the files that are associated with that particular program, and then it is going to find the registry entries and get rid of that. Now this is coming up and it's saying this setup must update files or services that cannot be updated while the system is running. If you choose to continue, a reboot will be required to complete the setup. So at this point, I'm going to cancel it because I don't want to have to reboot. But if I were to click OK, it would continue, and then at the very end, it would tell me that I have to reboot, or it would just do it for me. Okay, so I'm going to tell it to cancel. Let's go uninstall something else. I didn't realize it was going to do that. What else can I uninstall? I try to keep my machine fairly clean, so everything that I have here is something that I use on a frequent basis. Let's see. Let's do this one because it doesn't work anyway. So we'll click this and we'll tell it to uninstall. And again, it's going to come up. This time it didn't give us the thing, are you sure? We're going to tell it we want to uninstall though, because it says, well, what do you want to do? So we're going to uninstall. It's going to remove all that. Now this gives me the option to reboot now, or I want to manually reboot later. I'm going to tell it I want to manually reboot later. And the reason it does that is because there are files that are associated with this program that have been attached to critical system files. And when a critical system file is running, which is the case when you have Windows up, it can't detach those files that need to be gotten rid of from those critical system files. So in the reboot process, that's what happens. So whenever you uninstall a program, it's always a good idea to restart the computer, reboot, restart, same thing, restart the computer and then go from there. Because if you don't restart it, you could have issues, especially if you're going to turn around and reinstall that program again. Because if you don't restart in the interim, in between, then you're going to have the same issues that you have with the program to begin with. So I'm going to tell it that I want to manually reboot later, and I'm going to say finish. Now it'll tell me, it won't tell me again that I need to reboot, but the next time I restart, it could take a little bit longer for the machine to restart because of that issue right there. So that's basically the programs and features. We can go in there and we can uninstall programs. We can also see the installed updates for a machine. So if we click on View Installed Updates, it shows you all of the Windows updates that have been installed on the machine. For a while there, Windows 10 was trying to come into machines, and there was a specific update that had to be gotten rid of, and so it was KB 303. I don't think I have it. I think I actually uninstalled it, 303. You can see here that I looked for it, 3035583. That was the one that needed to be gotten rid of. So it would actually come up and show me all those with that number, and then I could get rid of it. You can also turn Windows features on or off. The likelihood that you're going to use these is relatively small, but you need to know that they're there. And we're just going to cancel out of that. This is different things. If you have Windows 7 Pro, you don't have games installed. You would be able to install them through this particular Windows features. We're going to cancel that. Now we're going to go back to programs. Actually, we're going to go back to control panel. We're going to go back. We're going to click the back button up here, okay, back and back. Okay, so now we're back to the control panel. And the next thing that you're probably going to take a look at is personalization. Now remember, I showed you at the very beginning of this video that I've got this Seahawks logo, and I color coordinated the background to match the green in the logo. And I did that using the control panel and the personalization option in it. So here's personalization. So we can access it from the control panel, but we can also access it with a right click on the desktop. So here's personalize. Okay, so here we go. This would be the same thing that we'd see. In fact, if we look up here, it says control panel, all control panel items, personalization. There's so many ways to get into different things. So what I did is I went to my desktop background. Okay, I clicked here and I said, this is where I want my Seahawks logo, okay, and you can see I got other pictures there as well. And then, see, I could choose a location. I could come over here and say, okay, I want to choose from the Windows desktop backgrounds. Okay, so here are all of these. Here are all these pictures that are preset in here. I could come over here and say, well, maybe I just want to be solid color. Okay, so that's it. That's right there. And I do have a solid color set, which is this green color that I matched with the Seahawks logo. I'm going to go to cancel because I don't want to change it. Okay, it's still my Seahawks logo here. And then I went into color. I went into custom color right here, and I changed that theme color so that it would have the green background with the green here. Now you don't have to change the background if you don't want to. You can actually just change it to a different picture. You can see here that we have some other installed themes. We had the pictures that we could choose from. So you could do anything. If I had a picture, let's find a picture on Google. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, and I'm going to come over here and brought it up on the other side. So I'm going to do this, and let's go search for let's see, another Mariners. Okay, Mariners, and then we go to images. And so here's a bunch of other things. So I could say, oh, well, I really like this picture. If I right click on it, remember a right click brings up a contextual menu that pertains to the item on which we've right clicked on. I could tell it to set it as my desktop background. I'm not going to do that because I went through a lot of trouble to get the other one, and I really like it, so I'm going to keep it that way. But you can see I have the option of setting that as a desktop background. I could find a picture of my family, or I could find a picture of my dog or my cats and put that as my background. For a while there, I had a ninja frog. If we go back into personalization, we come back over here, this was the other theme that I had, which was it was a ninja. So here we go. I'm going to go back to my Seahawks one, and then you know, I don't have to do anything, it's already saved. So, and let's see, the next thing you'd probably want is your Windows updates. So we're going to go back to all control panel items, and we'll go to Windows Update. And it comes up, now I turn my Windows updates off because it just drove me batty that they were always running and causing my computer to restart. So I just turned them off, and that's why I have so many of them. I don't suggest that you do that. You should definitely make sure that your updates are running. The updates for Windows actually help Windows remain secure. So whenever there's an update release, it's because they are fixing some sort of vulnerability within the operating system. So usually on Tuesday nights is when the updates drop. So they'll come out, your machine will go out and check the server, it'll pull anything in, it'll install them automatically, and most of the time on Wednesday morning when you get up, your machine has restarted itself, or when you restart, it'll go out and check for updates and tell you that there are updates to be installed. So it's always a good idea. It always checks for updates. It always checks for updates, but the last time an update was actually installed was back in April. You can see that right here, okay? So what it does is it goes out and it checks for everything pertaining to the operating system, and it also goes out and it checks for other Microsoft programs, so like Microsoft Office, anything that, any drivers that might be submitted to Microsoft that are on my machine, things of that nature. The last of the control panel items that we're actually going to cover is going to be the Action Center. Now you can see there's a whole bunch of them. You're not going to deal with half of them. You're not even going to deal with 2/3 of them. The Action Center, if we click on Action Center, this tells us what's going on. And the Action Center is actually linked to this little flag down here on the notification area. So this says solve PC issues. I have 2 messages, and here I have my 2 messages. So it says I need to disable the apps to help improve performance. It says I have 3 or more apps that start automatically and run in the background, and that's slowing down my PC. I don't know what they are. If I tell it to open the task manager, it will open the task manager, and here it moves it to the startup. Now mine's a little bit different. This is Windows 8.1 instead of Windows 7, but it comes up and says, okay, these are all of the things that are running in the background when you first start the computer up. And so there are 3 of them that could definitely be causing problems. And my guess is probably this iTunes helper is one of them for certain. Then we might have like the Java update or the Logitech. If I click on something, I can tell it to disable it. So I don't suggest doing that. You don't need to, unless you know for certain you don't want it running. And then this other one is finish installing device software. 1 or more devices connected to your PC needs additional software to work. I don't know what it is. I looked at my device manager and everything appears to be working properly. I'm actually going to tell it to turn that message off. I don't want to see it. If I click on security, I can see that my network firewall is on. I have Norton Antivirus turned on for my antivirus. My spyware is on. I have all my internet security settings are set to the recommended levels, so on and so forth. And then for maintenance, if I click on that, it says, you know, check for solutions is on. Everything is good to go. I'm good. So that's your Action Center. And if you get the little X or the little 1 or the 2 down here on the little flag, this is where it's going to bring you if you click on it. So those are the items that you're going to need to really deal with in the control panel. If you have questions, make sure you ask your instructor, or you can even email me. My email address is melissa.lenz@ghc.edu. It's melissa.lenz as in zebra @ghc.edu. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have pertaining to any of these videos that you have been watching for your curriculum. Again, thank you for joining me on this video, and have a wonderful day.